Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the Long Shot Podcast. I am your host, as always, Duncan Robinson, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague and co-worker and co-host, Davis Patrick Reid.
What else? What else am I to you? Come on, let's rattle off a few more things.
We're co-people. We're co-friends. We are once upon a time teammates. The list goes on and on. Now, actually, I don't know if we're co-workers. I think in some way, shape, or form, you're my subordinate. I think that could be painted in that way.
No.
I'm not going to go and say that, but I think from a technical standpoint, if you wanted to really get down to the nitty-gritty of things, I guess we could say that.
Without the audience getting too involved into our pockets, I think by definition that might be true, but I'm still not going to stand for it. We'll lean more into like the, co-pilots. We're co-pilots of this thing. How about that?
Co-pilots. Yeah, that's beautiful. That actually really ties into the compass metaphor that we've kind of been pushing these last couple of episodes.
You really feel good about that.
I don't actually. I do. I love that. I don't actually think of you as my subordinate. I think of you very much as my co-worker and my co-creator of this masterpiece we call The Long Shot. We're back for another episode. We have a fantastic guest in Pat Connaughton, a dear friend of the pod. We've been trying to get him on for quite some time. Finally got around to doing so. And I think you guys will be better off because of it. I really do.
How many people in professional sports are drafted by two leagues? Two of the big four. This guy's drafted by the MLB and the NBA. I mean, it's remarkable. We get into his story a little bit, him having the option to take millions of dollars as a high school kid to go play baseball, but instead he said, no, I have a dream of being drafted into the NBA, and so I'm going to go do that. And he did, and now he's an NBA champion.
It certainly worked out for him. I will say that. I also want to point out, a lot of people have been reaching out to me and saying that I need to start every segment of the podcast with hello and welcome. And I think some of the confusion is getting lost in the fact that we release our interviews on YouTube on Thursday. We release those first because that's kind of like the meat and potatoes. We release what we call our front of show, this right here, this little back and forth banter. We always release it on Friday. Now, chronologically, it doesn't make any sense. And I actually pushed back on this, but Davis was adamant that this is what needed to happen and how it needed to happen. Now, if you listen to the podcast, which we realize a vast majority of our community actually watches instead of listens, but if you listen, then the whole episode makes sense. It goes front of show into the interview and everything chronologically makes sense. But I just felt like we'd gone 40 whatever episodes, 37 episodes, whatever, and not even addressed that Thursday we release the interview and Friday we do the front of show.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, lead with the meat and potatoes. Pat Connaughton is a very interesting guy. We talked to him for an hour. We're going to get that to the people. You and I just kind of bullshit on here for 20 minutes a week. So we follow with that on a Friday. That's Friday content. It leads you into the weekend. Dave,
before we get to our conversation with Pat, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think our job here is just to touch on NBA storylines that are going on. So it feels disingenuous if I don't ask you about the Ben Simmons and Kyrie stuff. It's all I see on social media. It's amazing how like the NBA community becomes so entrenched in this drama. I don't know how serious the drama is if you're in the Sixers facility or if you're in the Brooklyn facility, but from the outside, it seems like these are such hot topics. It was just so interesting to me that Doc is asked about the Ben Simmons showing up in Philly after the preseason game a couple days ago. And his response is, I'll have to talk to Woj. And we've talked about that on this podcast before, but it's just insane that as fans, we're getting updates on this, again, drama almost before the franchise even is. Like, we know Ben is in Philly before Doc does, or it's simultaneous. It's such a weird phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, these are the two headlines that have absolutely dominated preseason thus far. And in actually kind of an interesting way, they've like played off of each other, right? Because like for a couple days, Kyrie will have the headline, and then all of a sudden some news will break with Ben. He's back in Philly, and then that'll grab the headline, and then everyone's talking about that. I mean, they're both tricky situations. You know, the Ben one, I will say it doesn't necessarily surprise me that he's back in Philly, mostly because he's losing serious dollars out of his pocket for every single hour, every single day that he's not reporting. And, you know, the Kyrie one is a tricky one as well. I mean, I understand the standpoint of it's his choice. And I also understand Sean Marks coming out and saying, you know, we don't want people that are just playing on road games. We want someone who's going to be fully committed and be around. So I'm interested to see how both situations play out. To be honest with you, like, I don't have any sort of hot take or inside scoop. You know, similarly to a Doc Rivers, I mean, I'm just kind of taking the information as it comes and just kind of seeing how it all plays out.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that, you know, it's such a hot topic to talk about player empowerment in this era of basketball. Like, do players have too much power? James Harden can force his way out of Houston. AD can force his way to LA. Like, is this good for the NBA? And I think what's interesting about both these stories, like you said, they sort of play off each other in this player empowerment discussion. It's like, yeah, look, if you have a really strong stance about your personal choice to get a vaccine, fine, you're entitled to make that decision, but the line is drawn there. Like, the Brooklyn Nets have the right to say, all right, Kyrie, if you don't want to get vaccinated, you can't play. Sorry. Same with Ben. If you don't want to come back to Philly, fine, that's your choice. But Philly has the right to now fine you and take your money. And that's maybe where the line is drawn. Now Ben is pressured to come back to Philly. So, you know, I just think the debate is, where is that line? Is there going to be some time where a player has too much power? It's like, I think in both of these cases, you're starting to see scenarios where it's like, well, no, you know what? It's good that players have empowerment, obviously. I think it's a player-driven league. The NBA is really good about that, giving players the platform to make those decisions. But there's also a time where the team has the right to draw the line, and I think we're seeing that with both of these guys.
Yeah, and I also think the line starts to come into play for the player themselves once their own pockets are on the line. And that's just truthfully speaking, like, as professional athletes, you have a very short window in which you can make money. And that's why I said it doesn't surprise me that Ben's back in Philly. Now, I think Kyrie is an interesting one because he's kind of shown in various ways that, you know, I don't want to say he doesn't care about money, but the money and losing money, I don't think impacts him the same way. This is just me, you know, as a spectator, just kind of like calling it how I see it. I don't think him losing money impacts him the way it would for a lot of other players. So I think Kyrie is a little bit more inclined, obviously, as we're seeing, to kind of like hold his ground on this type of issues. Now, whether that's for better or worse, obviously is up for debate, and that's not really something that I'm necessarily commenting on. But what I am commenting and kind of observing is that he does seem a little bit more willing to kind of take it there, if you will.
Look, I'm not going to, our job isn't to sit here and, like, you know, lambast Kyrie. But yeah, I just think, again, it's very interesting if you tie it into this player empowerment discussion. But I digress. Let's get to our Reddit question of the day. Dunk, let's shift to basketball a little bit more. This comes from Sayer, who asks, will shooting get better or worse this season with Wilson as the new game ball? So we haven't touched on this yet on this pod, but with the new Wilson ball, I'm maybe biased. I think the Wilson evolution is the greatest basketball ever created. But I'm curious, do you notice any difference at all this preseason and through camp with the new ball?
A couple things for you there. First off, it's the Reddit question of the week. Pretty disappointing that you messed up your own segment. Two, I strongly reject the Wilson evolution being the greatest ball. I don't understand the hype around the evolution. Incredibly overrated basketball, in my opinion. I understand it's the men's league basketball. It's what everyone plays with. It's the pickup, the rec basketball. Everybody plays with the evolution. In my opinion, it's like almost too soft and squishy. It gets ridiculously slippery when it gets sweaty or wet. all of a sudden becomes a greased watermelon. You can't even hold on to the thing. I don't understand the Wilson evolution obsession. It's just one thing that I will never be able to wrap my mind around. So many better basketballs than the Wilson evolution. The new Wilson NBA ball, they are trying to push that it's the same. And I'm not here for it. I don't think it is actually the same. Now, I think that players will get used to it and nothing will really change. But if you handed me like blind field test, right, a Spalding and a Wilson, I would 1,000% be able to tell the difference. They are not the same basketball. I just want to say that. Originally, it was pushed that, it's the same everything. The only thing different is the Spalding versus the Wilson logo. And it's just not. Now, with that being said, I'm not over here interested in making excuses. I have a little saying that I stole from Jason Williams that I could shoot a beach ball 50%. But, Wilson, Spalding, whatever it is, and obviously the beach ball 50% is somewhat tongue-in-cheek. But anyways, they're different basketballs, but I don't anticipate it being all that different.
Wait, so I have a lot to respond to there. You threw a lot at me. First of all, the Wilson evolution was made from a combination of like God and the clouds. So don't disrespect that ball. I get that maybe it gets a little slippery when you get sweaty, but I'm at a point in my career where I'm not getting that sweaty. I'm shooting around in an empty gym. So yeah, maybe we're at different places in our career to appreciate the Wilson evolution, but I don't appreciate the Wilson slander. But I'm very intrigued by, so what is can you put your finger on what the difference is? You're telling me a blind test of both of these basketballs, you could tell the difference. What exactly is it? Is it something that you're having to adjust to, or is it just minor things that aren't really going to impact the game?
So I'm optimistic that at some point Wilson will get them so they feel like the old Spalding. My immediate reactions or short-term reaction is that the Wilson just has a little bit more of like kind of a tackier feel. The Spalding had this like great feel to it where it just like would really break in really well. If anybody shot an NBA ball, you kind of know that the beginning of NBA ball, the beginning of an NBA ball's life is the worst part. But as you wear into it, it gets better and better as you use it. And I haven't found that to be true yet with the Wilsons is kind of my big takeaway.
Okay. Wow. I'm intrigued. It sounds like you're kind of just teeing up some excuses. If there is like some struggles early for the Heat, you can just say, well, it's the Wilson.
Well, see, that's what I wanted to address. That's kind of where the 50% line came in. I could shoot a beach ball 50% because it doesn't really matter. A ball's a ball and the hoop's still 10 feet. So I'm not really all that concerned, but it is different. I just wanted to say that. Anyways, let's get to the long shot feature. This is an incredible opportunity to shout out the Boston Red Sox. Moving on to the ALCS. Nobody really thought they had a chance, Dave. But you know who did think they have a chance? Just a kid from New Hampshire. Kid who just grew up a die-hard Boston Red Sox fan, a.k.a. host of The Long Shot, a.k.a. yours truly, Duncan Robinson.
It kills me as a Kansas City Royals guy because we had like 2 years. We had 2 years, 2014, 2015, where we had playoff runs, and it was so magical. And now we're back to obscurity. And the Red Sox just have been relevant forever, it seems like. And so it hurts me. Even years where you guys aren't supposed to be good, you upset the Rays. Also, feels like a good time to shout out our boy Max Eaton because big Tampa Bay guy. He was talking a lot of shit in our group chat, and we have a lot of Boston guys in that group chat, so they let him hear it. I feel for you, Max. I'm sorry.
I also want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about my Red Sox fandom. I mean this wholeheartedly. When they won the World Series in 2004, it still is probably a top 3 day of my entire life. I used to be obsessed with baseball. I was a die-hard Boston Red Sox fan. I used to skip school just to stay at home and watch opening day on TV. I was like that level of committed. Yeah, it was maniacal. Now, Now, to be honest with you, I probably have watched maybe less than 10 pitches of regular season Red Sox baseball. I am incredibly comfortable saying I'm entirely a bandwagon fan. But now that they're in the ALCS, I'm driving the bandwagon. One. And two, I also think that I've actually built up my fandom equity throughout my life. Like, I was such a diehard fan for so long that, for the last probably, let's say, 10 years, I haven't been a fan at all. But I still have that foundation of being a diehard fan. So it's so much easier for me to just turn it on in the playoffs.
Makes sense. It's like KU basketball for me. I was a diehard fan growing up. We've talked about that a little bit. Not at all anymore, but they're always going to have a piece of my heart. Have you ever thrown a first pitch out?
I never have. I've never been asked.
Wow. That spiel about the Red Sox feels like a door open, just like a crack door for if anyone hears this that's affiliated with the Red Sox. Can we get this guy on the mound to throw a pitch out? Hometown kid, come on.
What? I'd love to throw a pitch out anywhere. Whether it be Marlins, whether it be a high school game, just get an inaugural first pitch.
I don't know if
mostly just because I just would love to show my stuff out there. I used to pitch a little bit back in the day. I was a 3-pitch guy. Had a couple different off speed stuff. Went with the circle change. I tried to throw curveballs when I was younger and kind of messed up my elbow. So then I had to transition to a changeup. So I had kind of like a cutter that didn't really cut. It was just kind of like a little bit of a slower fastball. And then of course I had a 4-seam fastball, but that was kind of my pitch repertoire. Wasn't really anything special, but if I had the opportunity to throw a first pitch, I feel like you got to throw a fastball in that instance, but I think I would maybe break out the cutter just to do something a little bit different.
It's comical that we're talking about because I was also a pitcher, but it's comical that we're talking about our old days pitching when we're about to get to a conversation with Pat, who's like actually a legitimate pitcher, got drafted by the Orioles. But I also was a pitcher, and in middle school I threw a knuckleball. And shout out to my dad because he taught me that knuckleball. And how many 7th, 8th graders do you know that throw a knuckleball? No one had seen it before. And it wasn't great, but every once in a while it was effective. And I would just loft it in there. It would go 50 miles an hour, but it would just throw kids off. So I'd throw it once every 2-3 innings, and it was massively effective. Honestly, just for the confidence. I'd say rarely it was even a strike, but just the fact that I had a knuckleball in my bag, I was built different.
So you were the knuckleball kid. I feel like every little league in America had one kid that would get up there and try to throw knuckleballs. For the record, I firmly believe that you probably didn't really actually throw a knuckleball. Just because you put your knuckles on it and threw it doesn't mean it's an actual knuckleball.
Oh, no. That thing was knuckling.
Actually has to knuckle.
No, it was.
All right. Well, that remains to be seen. We're going to have to, put pen to paper and see if you really actually have a knuckleball at some point here down the line. Anyways, let's get to the real picture here. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Pat, because we certainly did.